it's not necessarily a tonnage play just to be a network. In some cases it is, but in a case like Rhapsody Voices, it's very much not. I'm very familiar with every one of the shows that we represent, and I don't see an ecosystem where that isn't a part of what we're building.
What does it look like when a podcast network invests deeply in creating new shows from scratch, rather than just simply acquiring what's already out there? What does it take to thoughtfully build new formats and communities instead of chasing scale for its own sake? If that kind of network-led show development sounds unusual, you're not alone. Most networks focus on growing the roster by recruiting established creators, not by helping original ideas become fully formed, sustainable podcasts. In this episode, the nuts and bolts of that creative investment, how and why to make it work, front and center. Our guest today is Mike Jensen, whose career spans AOL, The Wall Street Journal, and years leading podcast sales and strategy. He's now the founder of Rhapsody Voices, a boutique network of about 40 shows where the priority isn't just curating what exists, but rolling up their sleeves to generate, launch, and nurture brand new projects, often guiding them all the way from idea to live event. I'm Greg Wasserman, host of this amazing show, Podcast Network Insights. Spent 15 years in advertising sales, and since 2021, I've been immersed in the podcast ecosystem. To believe life is about time and relationships, you never know where one conversation will lead. I built a lot of relationships, and I've spent a lot of time with every kind of podcaster, from solo creators just getting started to, like my guest, the heads of networks. If you've ever wondered whether joining a network makes sense, how these networks actually run, other networks you could join, explore joining, advertising with, partnering with, learning from, well then my goal is to give you a real look behind the scenes so you can confidently navigate whether you host, produce, sponsor, or run a network. As you listen to this conversation, pay attention to the strategic decisions behind investing in new show creation, what resources and expertise are required, how networks evaluate which ideas are worth backing, how this build not just buy approach can strengthen both the network and the largest podcast ecosystem over time. The show wouldn't be possible with some amazing companies, so I have to take a moment and say thank you to my sponsors. The show is produced by the incredible team at Stories and Strategies. If you don't know Doug and Emily, I reach out, talk to them, and learn what they do. I'm using RSS.com for my podcast hosting, as podcast hosting is more than just storage. RSS.com provides so many features to ensure a great podcast experience. They're easy to use, give me maximum distribution. There's a community for me to learn from. I get to start monetizing from day one, basically, and so much more. They have a plan that works for networks as well as people like myself. Systems and processes are key for consistency needed in podcasting, which is why I use Northflow, a dedicated podcast project management platform built for podcasters by podcasters. We all know the power of repurposing content, which is why I lean on Cast Magic. It helps me with my scripts, with my social content, with the content I can give to my guests, and so much more. Check out the links in the show notes. And stay tuned after the interview, as there's more to this conversation, as I share some of my key takeaways from my conversation. That said, let's get into it. All right, Mike. Well, the show is called Podcast Network Insights. We always start with the same question. When you hear the word podcast network, what comes to mind? What do you think about? What does that mean to you?
I mean, when I hear podcast network, you know, the hopeful side of me, it's a collection of engaging shows, right? Because I got in the podcast space in 2012 because I was like, wait a minute, all this content is available right here on my phone at my choice. And so I still have a positive vibes for what it should mean, which is a great choice in listening for people. So I'm an optimist on what podcast network means.
So 10 years later, 14 years later, were we jaded now? What does it mean to you now?
Well, I mean, 14 years later, yeah. You know what? Is it a podcast network now? Is a kind of a complicated question, isn't it? Because we've got this channel that people seem to be pretty familiar with, YouTube, and there are many shows that are listed as podcasts on there that may not have an RSS feed yet. The indication is those are also podcasts. And So the idea of what a podcast is may be changing and open to interpretation more so than ever before. And look, as long as it's great content and it's engaging content, I think we need to be flexible. But it's gotten very complicated as far as what a podcast really is. When a traditional podcast had an RSS feed, and that was the test.
So then where does the network component come in? If we look at like what is a quote unquote podcast and what is a quote unquote network?
The network is an interesting is it so the network is in many cases viewed as a positive, right? Network, wow, that's got a lot of cross promotional opportunity for helping shows grow with other shows. But then at times the network becomes the negative, where it's like, wow, network, I'm just a show of many, right? So I think it's really important that, hey, whether it's a network or a show, the people that are involved in the network and the show are collaborative in making sure that we're highlighting, what the show is about, what the network's about, and giving some individual effort towards the shows that make up the network.
So would community be part of it for you? That kind of moves away from the negative connotation of the network definition you gave, or is it hard to do community in that flow?
Well, we're getting into the deep waters here, and so let's dive in, right? So oftentimes I'll refer to our portfolio of shows as a boutique collective of shows, because we are approaching 40 plus shows, right? But I think about network and the creator's views sometimes, and I worry that they think that we're not going to understand the individual aspects of their show when it's termed a network, right? But by the same token, here's the complication. When what I referred to earlier is like sometimes a network is a positive, meaning that, hey, we've got this entire network that we can help cross promote your shows. So it's interesting to make sure that when you're talking about a collective of shows and it's a network, it doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily a tonnage play just to be a network. In some cases it is, but in a case like Rhapsody Voices, it's very much not. I'm very familiar with every one of the shows that we represent, and I don't see an ecosystem where that isn't a part of what we're building. And that's not to say that it's not really, really valuable to have bigger networks that may have a more common theme like health or other aspects to the network where more is better, right? Like if I have a health network and I find out I have a particular kind of illness, I would love to find a show about that challenge for me. That's great. In the larger premium shows that we represent, where we have a number of different genres, I think we want to make sure that we're staying at a size that we understand each of those shows, because in a number of cases, they may not have as much commonality to them.
I like how you mentioned or define, Rhapsody as a boutique collection. The fact that like you view that as boutique and the connotation that kind of goes with boutique, because if we go down the path of like, you've worked for some major brands over your career, so where Mike came from in his career help guide you into how you've created this boutique and how you've created Rhapsody today?
Well, for me, one of the things that I really was drawn to in the podcast space was the long form content. And a lot of that aspect to the long form content that I was attracted to was on the journalism side. So started my career at AOL, and I started on the AOL side at a part of AOL called Digital Cities, which was a collection of city guides. There was a gentleman that's done pretty well for himself, Bill Simmons, who wrote for Digital City Boston. That was one of the places where he got his start. And Bill's done pretty well with the Ringer Network and a few podcasts of his own. And I was really drawn to being a part of those next generation of like city guides and write-ups on the digital landscape about communities. And then I moved over into the the Wall Street Journal, which is, a premium publication in news journalism. And I really liked building sponsorship adjacent to content and storytelling. And so that's what drew me to podcasting. So that's the connection for me, which is really enjoying the aspects of being a part of taking brands and marketers and putting them in a place in collaboration with, content and storytelling and journalism and finding that match. And so the podcast space, I think, in many respects has been a solution at a difficult time for journalism. And I realize it hasn't maybe done everything that we want to empower journalism because we've had a lot of layoffs, but it's done a heck of a lot. And I think, as an industry, we can feel good, and we need to continue to fund journalism. And podcasting is one part of that. I think a really important part. And that's how I got into it from my background.
What is Rhapsody? How have you created it? What defines Rhapsody Voices for I guess a listener right now? Like, how do we define that Rhapsody?
So for Rhapsody Voices, we look at it as building communities, and building those communities may be it may be in the genre of sports meets culture. It may be in the genre of true crime. But in each of our shows, they're building community, and we're helping empower, the build of that community, right? It may be that we're empowering the build of that community with successful sponsorships, right? It may be that that show we feel is a great fit and something that we can engage with to help set up live events for them, because that's something that we do. And we did about 40 live podcast events last year, helping build out the venues and the different levels of participation, VIPs, the standard pricing, all that kind of thing. And so that might be a fit for the creator. But all of the aspects of what we do is making sure that we're helping build that community, or build, revenue and monetization that's helping them focus on what they want to do as their first point of order, which is engaging content, whether it be true crime, sports, culture, comedy. And that's where we focus our attention, is making sure that we're building the customized solution for each show, right? And sometimes giving them guidance on what they need and what they don't need, right? Not every show's ready for a live event. Not every show's ready for video. Not every show fits with video, right? And in each instance, we try to be an authentic guide for like what makes sense for that show. And in some cases, the creator is educating us on their community, and and it's a collaboration on kind of what next in terms of like building the show out together.
So then, I mean, you look at your past in iHeart, right? You look at the other podcasts you've been at, Stitcher. We've got what is it? You said Wall Street? No, Tribune, AOL. So these different paths that have led you, like what I love about talking to network operators is just how their paths have led them to where they are now. And the fact that like you've come from that sales background, from understanding partnerships and collaborations with brands and content is probably different than most that aren't. I mean, I look at who I spoke with earlier today. Their background is completely different. So would you say, if I was a network operator, like what does that give you as a leg up when I look at your success?
Well, I think it's helpful to have been working with marketers across the different types of goal sets they have. So right now we've got some marketers that are sponsoring our shows where they don't have a particular coupon code call to action. So in those particular instances, we're doing a brand impact, brand lift study as part of the overall brand sponsorship in those shows. Whereas some of the many direct response marketers that we work with have different immediate touch points that they can evaluate a campaign off of it, whether it be site visits, coupon codes, pixel tracking, right? And I think that, for me as an operator, I have a variety of different campaigns and initiatives that we have running with sponsors, just having an understanding of those different goal sets for those different types of brand marketers, right? And so it ideally is putting us in a position where we're bringing our shows a variety of different sponsors, and in some cases, it may be as simple as just understanding sponsorship first. Some of the things as an operator we need to do to make sure that our sponsorships are most effective. So every month we're looking at listen through rates. We're looking at view through rates, right, for the shows that are video enabled. And we're saying, okay, what does our ad load look like? What is the Magellan metrics that show the average ad load, and what elements of what is a listener viewing as sort of a normal ad load exposure, and how are listeners listening to those shows? Let's make sure that we're not over inundating our listeners with too many ads, and let's make sure the ads that they're hearing around the view through and the listen through rate percentages. So that's a formula, and I'm sure that many are doing it. But I would say, as an operator that comes from a sponsorship and sales background that built my career, it's top of mind for me, right? In our Monday morning meetings, like, hey, let's make sure that we're looking at our delivery. Can we look at our view throughs? Can we look at our listen throughs? What do we have on our docket for matching sponsorship activity with our content and creator activity, right? Because that's the secret sauce, right? When I'm listening to a show and I hear 5 pre-rolls, yes, I can go through those and hit it, but at some point you're fatiguing me for my experience, right? 5 pre-rolls before my show starts is too many, right? And 13 minutes of mid-roll ads is also, in an hour, probably too many, right? And so those are the operator tactics to go with. Hey, I think I understand the different needs of different types of marketers, because the grass is not always greener. Like, these brand sponsorship initiatives are hard, but the direct response initiatives are hard. Everything is hard. Success is hard, right? So you just have to stick with it. But focusing on all these things has allowed us to solidify and grow our portfolio, and it's brought us some premium talent that we can work with and have on our roster.
But Mike, I want to make as much money as possible. So how do we put more ads means more money, right? So how do you balance the conversations with expectation setting with a creator who's coming to you going like, hey, sell ads, make me a bunch of money. You now have to operate at a completely different expectation level.
I think in most cases, we can give the creator credit here. I think if you talk with the creator about, hey, what we're seeing in the market, or what we're, looking at your show for ad load versus normal scenarios, it's very rare that I'm challenged with, hey, this is the guidance that we're seeing. It's probably on one hand that someone said, hey, I don't care. Like, let's pack this thing, right? That's very rare. I think where you see ad load get pretty extensive is in cases, and I do come from, big corporate entities and have lots of friends and great experiences there, but there are organizations and structures that are done where the math around the show is dictating now what is happening with the ad load in the show. And for a select set of shows, you might get away with that. Although I would argue when managed correctly, there's probably other ways rather than creating a bad listening experience to get there. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think the summary is that most creators will listen to you talking about that balance between their listener experience and the money they want to make. And I don't often hear that there isn't a agreed collaboration on getting that done together.
No, I mean, you answered the question exactly as I would expect. So perfect. Because as the network operator, but also one who's looking at things from a very holistic but revenue driven mindset, you're also giving a lot of credit to the creator. But your job as the network operator is, hey, I've got a different view overall. Like, I'm looking at these numbers, not just from your show, but from an overall show. From 20 plus years of experience doing this, like that is what I bring to the table. That's why talent is coming to you, because they're leaning on that knowledge, that expertise, but also the volume of what you're working with.
Yeah, and I think that us in the industry, and yourself included, we have to pull data for them, right? Like we can't expect a creator whose full-time job is to engage audiences to always have some of the research that is at our fingertips, right? Like many may sit for they may have been brought into awareness of like Tom Webster and the many years of work from him and others around what's happening with behavior of listeners, what's happening with sponsorship around behavior of listeners. But that doesn't necessarily mean that creator's been exposed to that, right? And I find when they are, like I'll literally do, hey, not doing a deep dive here. Here's a link to what I'm sourcing here. And I'll do a screen grab of, hey, this is the average mid-roll ad load right now and pre-roll ad load right now. And send it over, right? And sometimes, look, I had a show that felt like really was trying to do the right thing by the listener and wanted to have just one pre-roll, and a very standard low ad load is 2 pre-rolls for 1 minute at the start of a show, and one of the aspects for that is to utilize that inventory for cross promo for that person's show with other cross promos in the ecosystem, right? To help grow their show and awareness as part of it. And so I just did, a quick research tidbits on, hey, this is why 2 makes sense. Here's some data on it. And, the email back was like, oh, hey, this is great. Thanks. Like I didn't know what was expected. I'm so head down building my show. He's like, I love podcasts. I barely have enough time to listen because I'm so busy building my podcast. Right. And I was like, no, I totally get it. But like, I think that collaboration with research and data is super helpful. And to that end, I think, what you're doing with this show and what others are doing with continuing to have trade publication type of data for creators is really important, because you can't expect them to necessarily have all those ins and outs.
No, I appreciate it. So, I mean, speaking and staying on creators, you've got 40 shows. This isn't your first rodeo. What are the questions that, if I wanted to join a network, whether yours or just in general, like as a creator, I should be asking? Like, why wouldn't I want to just stay independent? Why would I join a network? And why would I want to join the right network? What's that look like for me?
So I think as a creator, the first step is to understand the size of the audience, right? And whether a network and your participation in joining is a fit based on your goal. And if your goal is, I'm joining a network because I want to drive sponsorship dollars, and I want those sponsorship dollars to happen beyond the traditional radio ads, whether it be run of network or programmatic. I want direct sold opportunities, right? That's generally an early motivation for joining a network, right? You need to start doing some analysis of like, okay, what is the size of your show, and what, how close are you to having that be a reality, that you're going to see the success that you're looking for on the monetization front? Because at the end of the day, all media is generally bought on a CPM as its standard metric, and that's based on scale and size. And look, you might be able to have a very niche show get $100 CPM, or you might have a comedy show and it makes sense to get a $15 CPM. But that metric has been in place for many years in media for a reason, and it's hard to get outside of it, right? In terms of media sponsorship, direct sold dollars. So you have to understand where are you at in that ecosystem, in terms of the size of your shows, and doing some math around the range of CPMs that are considered standard, because it may be that your energy is better at a particular point, saying, you know what, right now I'm building a really powerful community, and I'm actually going to offer some additional services with a bonus episode every week for people that are going to buy me a coffee, right? And you're looking at like a more of a membership supported initiative, right? It may be that and you're big enough for some direct sponsorship dollars opportunities, and you should be talking with networks about what's really realistic for your size, and what could the next 6 months look like, and understand that, hey, some audiences are more fruitful with immediate sponsorship responses than others. And that will be something that'll be hard for the network to know exactly, but you can get a range of ideas of like your size show, market CPMs, where you're at in the ecosystem, what's the sponsorship opportunity revenue for direct sale in addition to what you're doing now, and when's the right time. And then you should be asking the networks, what type of shows do you represent? When are you out? When in your particular ecosystem is it right for us to represent you, right? Like we're still more of a boutique collective. So we do have some business shows, even some comedy shows that are very sticky, and they're not top 200 in genre shows, but they do very well for sponsors. That might be a harder fit at a very large network, where they say, you know what, we can put you on here and we're going to sell you, but we're actually going to sell you run of network with other things we put into the ecosystem. And for some shows, that network's probably too big for them, because they're doing 100,000 plus downloads a month. And actually, if it was curated a little bit more, they'd be better off at a mid-tier network like Rhapsody Voices, in the way that we curate, the type of sponsorships that we do. We've got some shows that are multi-channel across audio and video, and we may sell a sponsorship, multiple drops into the YouTube channel for the week, and DAI across the month for audio. We'll customize around what that creator's needs make sense for both a win-win for the sponsor and the show. But it starts with the show understanding overall, like, hey, what's my audience? And, is the networks that I'm talking to relevant for me? These are the questions I need to ask about, like, what to expect in terms of revenue in the first 6 months, and what would you recommend as a strategy for my show, right? And if there's limited answers and feedback coming back, well, that's a tough start, because you're looking for someone to collaborate. I have to have calls sometimes where I say, hey, I actually think you should go with buy us a cup of coffee first, right? Like, you guys have a compelling audience, but I don't think direct sales is a good time for you. But I think that there's probably an opportunity here to ask for offering a little bit more for your audience at a certain level that you're at. And in some cases, that's too early, right? It's like, you have to keep building, right? And so that's probably a long answer to the question, but it really starts with understanding, where are you in the ecosystem from a SaaS perspective?
And so for Rhapsody, for a network standpoint, you've got 40 shows under you. You're looking for new shows, but also as a network operator, what are you guys doing to operationalize the work that you have to do? Because I think that is something that most podcasters don't understand, what a network operator is actually operationalizing, but also every network that I talk to, you guys all have your own little toolbox of tools and helping you manage what you have to do, which also part of your background helps set you apart, but also the tool sets and what you're doing sets you apart.
Yeah, for us, the tool set has evolved. So related to that is, in our first couple of years, we were really dedicated, understand every show, and what that show's audience offered in the community. And it was traditional rep firm oriented, right? And then I would say about the second year, we started also helping shows grow audience, right? We started to leverage our network to do real cross promos where we were connected to any number of other network partners that were really engaged with us on that 20 plus, right? And we would, build and help, and we still do that to this day. Build shows that had audiences into larger audiences. And in some cases, we launched shows from scratch, and we still do that to this day. I would say as we enter year 4, we've stepped into a new arena over the last year where we've actually had an idea for a show come to us, but the show does not have its production set up and has unique needs. And we go all the way from representing the show to now cross promoting for the show in the second year. Our third and fourth year, we've launched shows, provided the executive producing and the editing. And so the Players Box that we have in partnership with We Wired Talent with 4 of the best tennis players in the world is a show that we help executive produce. I mean, a year ago at this time, US Open, these 4 girls that are very, very talented tennis players, to say the least, and close friends, have built a really great society, fun culture meets sports show about life as elite tennis pros, and they're all good friends, and it's a really wonderful show. But a year ago, I was like, we want to do this show. Okay, great. They don't have laptops and they've never been on podcasts, right? So like and by the way, we travel all over the world, right? And we play the other best player tennis, a little busy, right? It's really hard to beat the best tennis players in the world. And so we've made that show happen, and it's been part of our growth to say, you know what, we've got the network of great editors and producers. And we're not going to do it all the time because we're a boutique collective of shows. But when we see an opportunity, we're going to engage in building out a show, help produce it, help edit it, help cross promote it, and help sell it. Right. So that's been, our journey from, hey, we're just going to, I have 20 years of sales experience and sales leadership. And I love podcasting, and I have a small team around me that I can build and really help dedicate selling your show at best in class, to today where we've got these other parts of the team, including my partner Harris Lane and her guide of the head of content and how to make sure we understand when to dive into make a show like this and how to make that show successful has been the growth for us. And it has me out in Vegas in 110-degree heat at CrimeCon, meeting other people that are doing investigative CrimeCon work, because that next great true crime show might be out there and someone just needs help making it, right? And so that's a fun next step for us as we enter years 4 and 5 building the company.
I think that last point of you going to these conferences to find the next show is something that network operators, if you're listening to this, is like, how do you find that next show? Mike just kind of said, like, I'm looking for something that doesn't exist, but I know could be sold and could be produced. And how do we package this? Where some network operators may be like, all right, I'm going to go poach an existing show that's either on a different network or doesn't have a network, and it's like, hey, come over here. So having that mindset, having that, I guess, 4 years in, you now at least have the ability to do something like that, which maybe some others don't.
I think that it's for each company to decide what their lanes are. And for myself, it came by way of, okay, the people that we have at the company, they have these talents. We need to, exploit them, right? If the Golden State Warriors weren't really very good at shooting threes, they shouldn't shoot as many of them. But it turned out they were really good at it, and they won some championships, right? I don't think we're the Golden State Warriors of 2016, but we are a team where we're trying to lean into the strengths of the people that are a part of the team And when we were doing cross promotes, it was like, you know what? We're doing a great job growing a show from scratch with the cross promotional, but we actually could create some shows that um, that that aren't out there that we feel good about, or at least bring the tonnage. So, for example, back to the true crime example, the team doesn't want to try to do investigative journalism of true crime. We would be able to bring all the elements of how to storyboard that and how to really create that into a compelling, monetizable, well edited and crafted go to market strategy around the work of people that are doing the investigative journalism around true crime, and or true crime so broad, or just being incredibly entertaining in the space that is what we'll call true crime light, which is, uh, not the bloody axe, but rather, people stealing stuff and how it happens, which I welcome us having that in the genre too. We need a little lighter fare, right?
There you go. Well, so I mean, we're recording this in July of 2026. You're literally 3+ years into your journey. I think you guess at least your LinkedIn show started July of 2023. So we're starting year 4 here. If you started your network today, what would you do differently? And I know you've started multiple networks, and so each one iterates, and this is the first time you get to start like this whole thing. But like, what have you learned from starting this on your own that you would do differently for today?
Great question. Hard question. I think that when you start something, it is a good idea to work through your network and your referral process of people that are recommending you. And that's a lot of what we did at Rhapsody. And so I don't think that was a mistake. I would probably, starting today, I might pursue more of the things that I see as a passion, that I see as white space out there for show creation, or looking to obtain and represent really compelling content that I find across audio and video a little bit more aggressively. I think I was really working hard at, it's just sort of crafting every conversation into like the best opportunity, because you're so grateful that people are kind of coming to you through referral, and you want to make every part of that, and we did that. But I think you can be really enamored with that, and you also need to be outwardly more aggressive to say, oh, these are the things I see trending in the space from a content perspective, and like I have a passion for them, and I've founded this company. I want to go see if we can make that happen, right? And so if I could go back, I probably would have put a little bit more of my sales hat on. But when you start a company, you're very focused on your operational hat, right? Because you don't want to screw anything up, right? Like, 3 years later, we don't have problems with billing or invoices or anything like that, right? So now it's easier for me to say that. But when I was starting things, it was different than having the accounting division do it for you, right? It's like, oh, I hired the accounting division, so like, it's still on me if we're not doing it right, right? So it's a little easier for me to say that now, but I still, if I could go back in time, I would have taken a few hours a week to say, these are the things I'm really excited about, or shows that I really believe in, because I think I would have found some things early that are now blossoming. And maybe they would be at Rhapsody Voices because I've seen them grow, and I'm like, yeah, I really like listening to them. I should have pinged them. I should have called them. I should have DM'd them, right? I guess that's the part where you're like, oh, you've got to embrace the fact that you're building this thing, and go ahead and do what you like.
Take the risk.
Yeah. You took one part of the risk. You might as well take the other part and ping a few people that don't know you and say, hey, I really love this. Do you want to do something? And we're doing that now. But we didn't do as much of it back then as I think we should have. But hey, maybe we have a better place now to create more immediate interest. So, maybe I would have been a little more self-defeated back about a few years ago, but I don't know. So,
I mean, look, my motto, life is about time and relationships. So, hey, you
yeah,
started the relationships then and the timing's
yeah,
better now. But what I love of what you're saying is for anyone that's listening, it's there's still so much content that can be made and made well that you don't necessarily have to go find the existing show and try and help them grow. What you're saying is there is stuff that's not even been created yet that has a story that, if it's told correctly, could be sold, could be packaged, could be grown, could be turned into something that doesn't exist now. And I think that for anyone that's listening, anyone that's running a network, like I think Mike's what the advice you're giving is go risk a little more, go do a little more, go find what that white space that you're missing and go create it, as opposed to how do we just slot things in that are existing.
yeah. I mean, there are. I can remember being in South by Southwest in 2013, and the story is the building I walked out of. Um, Adele was playing in. I didn't see her, and apparently nobody was there. Well, everyone loved Adele later, right? Like your opportunity in front of you, if you're feeling like you're building compelling content, you have to keep moving forward, right? And um, related to that is, what I was talking about with things that we're creating that may not be ready for sponsorship sales yet because we're just growing them now. But we have a couple of projects like Breaking Down the Biz with a C-suite executive who's on Bloomberg every week and has great insights on media, but also building out a channel for himself for long form. And it's really interesting to listen to his insights every week beyond the short form content on Bloomberg News on TV around what's happening with these deals. And we're just building that show up, right? Like those opportunities, they're just about time that it takes to build something. And for people that are listening and working with you that are out there, like I think there are multiple ways that it can grow into something. I do think you should set your expectations as a creator and be asking those tough questions like we talked about, okay, well, what is my size now? Because you want to try to avoid being disenchanted, right? And what I mean by that is setting unrealistic expectations and then working many, many hours and then not hitting those expectations that weren't realistic is not something that any of us would recommend, right? But within the guidance of what this show is partly about, right, and the people that you can have access to, you should be able to uncover what are your goals, right, for the show, and what does that mean for you as far as your time allocation, right, for creating the show. And I mean that for everybody. Like that's not just for like we face that with very premium talent sometimes. We were thinking about doing a rewatch for a show that was being rebooted, and the celebrity talent, he had select group of people that he wanted to have be a part of the show that were going to do a lot of the heavy lifting. And when they couldn't do it, he was very honest and said, I can't do this. I have too many projects going on. This doesn't make sense. And I was so grateful for, okay, great. Instead of going in 3 weeks and realizing, oh, wow, doing a podcast every week, it's a lot of work to engage somebody for 50 minutes, right? Like, like it's, so even the top talent that have millions of followers, they have to do the same thing, right? They have to say, hey, how much scale do I have, in my life to do this? And how much do I enjoy it? Right?
Yeah, I think that's a key piece. How much do I enjoy doing this? Do I want to keep getting in front of a mic? And even if the money doesn't come for day one, because we know it's not going to come right away, it's going to take some time because you're starting from scratch, and converting 1 million followers on Instagram to a long form video or a long form audio doesn't translate all the time.
Yeah, I mean, we have a partnership with the Comedy Store, legendary Comedy Store, and so we've had a number of their very talented comedians a part of our network, but not all their comedians, because obviously some of their legendary comedians look at the space and go, wow, do I want to try to do an hour every week on a podcast in addition to writing all this and getting up on stage and being on a tour and being on the road? And a select few love it, right? And a number of comedians that are very talented don't have a podcast. And I'm sure there are a lot of very talented comedians that could have a successful podcast, but they recognize, hey, that's not in my workload, right? I don't want to do that. And some of them that have a successful podcast, they probably make a ton more money on stage, but they love doing the podcast. And by the way, it complements the work that they do in the space and overall. So,
well, we've already mentioned one of your podcasts, but I always like to ask, we know podcast discovery is difficult. What's one podcast that you would recommend more people should be listening to?
Is it a Rhapsody Voices podcast?
Doesn't matter. One podcast. It could be a Rhapsody. It could be a non-Rhapsody. You get to choose. What should people listen to? It's your shout out.
Well, okay. Well, I'm going to be self-serving here.
There you go.
The Players Box, which is the tennis podcast, we'll call it Tennis Meets Culture podcast, for the top female tennis players in the world, best friends. That show's been really growing for us over this last year. And if you're interested in insights into tennis and culture and everything that's not the 2 or 3 minute clips that you hear after they win or lose matches, and the excitement of like being a pro, but also the complications of being on the road, it's a wonderful show, right? Like and people are like, oh, is it a heavy female? I'm like, no, it's 60-40. It's 64 because I love watching pro tennis and I love watching pro men and pro women. And like, it makes sense that it's split, right? Because it's such a dynamic sport, and it's you versus, two versus two or 1 versus 1, whatever the case may be. Like, you're out there front stage, like golf, right? Like, there's not 11 people on the field. That's you, right? And hearing the insights, after the matches is, for the personalities is a lot of fun. But man, there's so many different great shows out there right now. I love that a show, Today Explained, is still now in its growth mode. I mean, I remember I was listening to that in 2018.
What was it? Today Explained?
Yeah, Today Explained on the Vox network. And like, I was like, why is no one else listening to this? And now it's really popular, right? But back then I was getting worried. I was like, are they going to cancel this? Like, and so I think there's a lot of great shows happening. I think Question Everything, a new show. I think KCRW is underwriting it, but I think it's a great show that's investigative journalism that I've started to get into. I don't know, Greg, you may have to name a couple of yours because I could go for a while.
No, this is great. I put them all in the show notes and they go in the newsletter, but that's always helping discover new shows. And that goes to the next piece, because everyone says that there's too many podcasts, which, as we've discussed here, you're already creating new podcasts. So clearly we don't believe that, which of course, work in the podcast industry, we don't, but no one ever says that there's too many books. So I always turn and like, what's one book you would recommend? It could be anything for that matter that you would want to recommend as in a book form.
Oh man, that's a tough one. You want me to recommend a book?
You're like, Greg, I don't read. I listen to podcasts.
Well, I feel like because this is a business podcast, it's like, okay.
We've had kids books recommend. We've had leadership. We've had the classics. It could be anything. I mean, I always recommend Ryan Berman's Behind Me, Return on Courage is a good one, but it could be anything you want.
Let's see. I'm looking at my audiobook list right now, and what am I going to do with this? I really would like to pick I feel like the one I listened to recently was actually Scott Galloway's The Algebra of Happiness, I believe it was, or am I butchering it with The Algebra of Wealth, which I'm not recommending. You can find.
I don't know. I haven't heard of either one. So,
but his books are endearing because it's like it's life meets uh, you want to be successful, but y- you can't take it with you. From a financial standpoint, um, and there's a limited return to like gaining wealth and gaining happiness with it. So his books on, uh, that Scott Galloway's books related to that balance, coming from a really rich guy, by the way, I are super super valuable. So that's one of my
There
that's
you
one of
go.
my favorites. You know, it's interesting because my audio and my regular book reading have been hurt by my podcast listening.
Likewise, which
Yeah.
is a good thing in some regards.
No, it's a good thing. I mean, I'm still grumpy when I miss my marketplace at the end of the day, right? I've been listening to marketplace since, 2011. So, that's a business meets culture, right? And I think that there's I think podcasting brings so many of those. Hey, it's business and it's culture. It's investing in its culture. It's sports and its culture. Like if you think about all the different genres and some of the special nature of podcasting, it brings humanity in across most genres, right? Even if you're talking about news or political commentary, like I think the longer form of the podcast versus PBS, which I love, or other channels that are more news related, like, I think we bring kind of the humanity and the culture across genres with podcasting. So there's still such a long way to go, like you were saying, Greg, right? Like, I mean, we've got this channel that like doesn't limit you to 3 or 5 or 6 minutes, and you've got a wealth of shows that are going to come, that are going to be great, and we don't know what they are yet. But say there's too many podcasts. I get it. I think the discovery is the problem, right? The creativity is not the problem, right? Like no one's sitting around going, there will never be another good movie, right? And there'll be another great podcast, and we just got to figure out what they are, or how to create them.
And there you go. Well, we'll look to Rhapsody Voices for helping us discover them, create them, or I guess market and sell good brands into them, right?
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me get out of my world of entrepreneurship and have this discussion. I think it's really great that we have these vehicles in the space that you've been providing a lot more guidance and expertise for than I have, as someone is a great connector in our space and something that we've needed. I think you and I have been talking at these different venues, online and in person, for 3 years, and it's made the space probably one of the more enjoyable parts of my career. Not to take anything away from traditional media, but podcasting culture kind of extends over into the people that are part of it, and that's been a really great experience for me. So thanks for making this happen and building this channel and providing some guidance for you, me, and the audience, I hope. So
No, thank you. I mean, look, we both come from traditional media in that regards, but we both love podcasting because of the culture. What is it? 5 years plus I've been doing this. I've never thought I'd be in podcasting, but the fact that podcasting so community driven, partnerships is community driven. So it's like, all right, it was kind of just a perfect mirroring of looking at that. And as you started at the top, what is a podcast? Where are we going from here? I think as long as we can continue the culture component of it, I don't think it really matters what we call it.
That's true. And actually, we could have taken the easy way out, and we'll take it at maybe the end, because we can always edit this, which is now we've got a name for all of it, which is the creator economy, right? There you go. We're in the creator economy. We waited it. We dug in and pushed hard enough and put enough hours in that we got some branding for it that makes it easier for all of us. So there you go.
Creator economy, and just choose which avenue you want to create content in, or what do you want to focus your distribution on, and that's basically it, right?
Yep, there you go.
Oh man, Mike, always a pleasure.
Great to see you.
Cheers. Well, you've made it this far, and I really appreciate it. I truly do, because most of us don't make it to the end of the episode. And as I said at the beginning, if you give me a few extra minutes of your time, I would love to share my thoughts on my conversation with Mike. I come back to the beginning. I open with the idea of a network that doesn't just add existing shows, but goes all in on helping new concepts take root from scratch. It's a much deeper kind of investment than you usually see, and usually led by a network operator who's willing to get involved in development, not just distribution, something that helps make Mike and the network really successful. Besides that, there are a few other things that I walked away from this conversation with. First, it's how Mike's own background shapes Rhapsody Voices. It's easy to overlook how much having someone at the top who runs sponsorships, steered ad deals, built content actually determines which doors a network can open. It made me realize that sometimes the advantage isn't just the brand or catalog, but it's the head of the ship. Second, how honest Mike was about whether a creator is even ready for what a network brings. He described moments where comedians turned down podcasting, not because they couldn't do it, but because they saw how it would compete with their existing creative energy and schedule. It's really talked about. Usually networks and creators want to say yes first and figure it out later. But sometimes saying no is actually a smart move. It kind of changes how you look at evaluating a creative fit versus just chasing a deal. Third, I was struck by the practical, sometimes tough conversations around monetization and expectation setting. There's this idea that joining a network means instant sponsorships or ad money, but Mike broke that down. Sometimes the right advice is to wait, focus on the community, or even a simple membership tier, rather than cramming in ads before the show's even ready. It's a very different model than most creators expect, and it raises a question of whether networks and creators always having the real conversation about what's actually possible. And fourth, the way Rhapsody Voices walks creators through advertising mechanics, pulling real data and standards into the discussion, isn't just about sales, it's about teaching partnerships. The back and forth helps set expectations and honestly, probably reduces a lot of frustration down the road, which is part of one of the reasons I started the show in the first place. And most operators don't go that far. If they did, I wouldn't have a show probably. There's a lot to sit in, and I'm curious what you think and you learned from this conversation. Once again, thank you for tuning in. To those of you who have already rated and given me a review, I appreciate it. The comments mean so much and help me continue to improve on what I'm doing to provide you the value. As I say, life is about time and relationships. You have no clue where one conversation is going to take you. And this is exactly why I have this show. I'm able to provide these conversations because of all those things. That's why I love networking. You have no clue where listening to these conversations will take you now or in the future, but I guarantee you your future self will thank you for tuning in. I live on LinkedIn. Reach out. Let's talk. Links are in the show notes. For those of you who've already done so, I appreciate it. It means that the podcast is having a lot of value and is creating the conversations I want it to have. I have a newsletter that promotes podcasts to listen to. As discovery for podcasts is incredibly difficult. It's on my LinkedIn. Subscribe and find podcasts that I weekly review along with my guest recommendations. Subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. New episodes come out every Thursday. Until next time, I appreciate you.